Hello. So, one discovery, just like an insight, just came to me as I was watching Ancient Aliens. For those who do watch that, great. If you don't, great. Doesn't matter. And they were talking about time travel. They were talking about all these things, with aliens and all that stuff. But if you watch it, you'll kind of get what I'm saying. But at the same time, let's not narrow things down too much, but not too off as well. The one thing that came to me is, and this is obviously gonna sound like, because I have this thing, it's just I go off on tangents or I say things that people don't really get, and that's because I don't know what it is. To be honest, I feel like maybe you can say I come from a line of, I don't know, crazy, whatever. It's just out of this world, and that's fine. I mean, people are open to that now. A lot of people are. So the way it is like Uranus, right? We look at Uranus, and just from the aspect of not necessarily Uranus itself, astrologically or whatever, speaking, that Uranian thing, that thing to transcend, transform, to go beyond, right? So the way I wrote it here is that futuristic, that thing with Uranus and tied into Aquarius as well, with Saturn also rules Aquarius, but isn't just about that. What I wrote down here, I took notes on this because I thought I need to write this down. It's not just about that linear time oriented conceptualization, meaning here, there. In reality, it doesn't exist. I mean, reality as in like the greater reality. This is this reality, then there is a greater reality of energy. That's also about understanding. So Uranus is not just that, which is meaning futuristic, meaning it's not just like, oh, here I'm going from here to there, because they were talking about time travel in the show, and it was like, okay, and then wormholes. I was like, yeah, makes sense from this perspective, but we know that it's more than that, right? So it's also about understanding that what is, in other words, to move forward. When I say forward, I don't mean not just time-wise, not just linear time-wise, but like forward transformation, which ties in with the elevation thing, right? With being light, and and they were talking about speed of light. That's what it is. It's speed of light. I'm going to get to further. Let's bear with me here. And in material alterations, meaning, when it's electricity, right? Uranus rules electricity. So when you go, it burns something. So in other words, it also kind of, in a way, destroys it, shakes it up. Uranus is earth shaker. And this is something beyond Saturn, which is always about form, always like structure, forms, rigidness, preservation, conservation, right? So Uranus is that seeking, actually. It's a seeking of what else is beyond this myopic, thing called conceptualization, form. Okay, we call it many things. It comes in terms of the earth itself. Things, being human, the body, just things, material things, matter, right? So that's Saturn, right? Ties in with actually Uranus, the sky god in Greek mythology. So in other words, it's sky gods up there. So in other words, light, energy, formless. I'm not going to tie this back into what they were talking about when it comes to traveling, the space travel, let alone going back in time, going into the future. So time travel and space travel, right? So in order to travel space, out there from here, right, from these so-called limitations, because that's what it is. It's that inner Uranus, right? From boundaries, from non-understanding into better understanding or more understanding, or maybe not necessarily quantitative understanding, but qualitative understanding from this myopicness of this form. this is what it is, Uranus. We have this psychological yearning, okay, to break free of this formness, being in form. And then in order to go back in time, in this linear world, we have to break free from the linear. We have to break free from that. So, but in order to break free from that, to travel back in time in this linear world, we also must break of that linear as well. So space-time travel both have to break off of that. But in order to perceive time itself, we have to get away from that conceptualization of time, that it's like from this to this, A to Z. That doesn't work that way in reality, because if you talk about the size of the universe, right? I'm going to get to that in a second here. So one more thing. But in order to perceive time, we must let go of time. We must be timeless. In other words, light. In order to be timeless, in order for all those things to happen, traveling, space travel, going back in time, even better understanding, which is all of this stuff is very Uranian, right? In order to be timeless, we must also break free of time itself. So, thus, I wrote here, it is freedom. At least in form, really, it's really just energy. That's freedom. So freedom as in, like, there's no limitations, because freedom is the opposite of constriction, or, right here. Box, outside the box. Okay, we see it as oppositions, but the thing is, even that, oppositions, that's duality. So we're going to go back into this, where we see that, it's really energy, anything is possible, even from the perspective that a universe, pretended the universe itself is like a body in itself, or a being. How long does it take for it to go from, to digest things? For example, it swallows something, figuratively, swallows something, it goes into processing. So in other words, the body starts to pick things up, it understands, it transmits. It only takes, just like that, maybe a few days. If you look at it from the massive point of view, compare that ratio-wise, the universe itself, a universe, like as if it were a body, from one end to the other, so from mouth to anus, okay, it takes, that's it, okay? Same thing. Why? Why am I saying this one? Well, because the universe is space, it's spaciousness. This is exactly what Eckhart was talking about when he talks about spaciousness, that beingness, is that it's timeless, it's formless. That spaciousness, exactly what it is. Right? It's the invisible. So, but here's the thing. We are in this form. So the key is to be conscious about that we have to combine both the Saturn, okay, the inner Saturn, or the Saturn, it's both figurative and literal, and the inner Uranus, figurative and literally speaking, okay, figuratively and literally speaking. So we are conscious enough anyway, so we are that universe, we are space, that, so it, let's just call it it, okay, so from source, whatever you want to call it, eternal light energy, that through that we can do anything. But the ego is sourced from that limitation, that belief that there is this duality in the first place. They're not. They're one and the same thing. Life and death. Okay, good and bad. How we work with it is looking at the whole. That's what goodness really is. The word good actually referred to. I read this somewhere that it's something to do with good, like God. God and good are the same thing, meaning that they are one. One means one. Source, whole. So it's not about good or bad, it's about uprising above that. And that's what the whole is. You can call it whatever you want to. Those are labels. Right? Even the energy of Uranus that we're talking about right here, even behind all that stuff, which is consciousness, beyond that. It's beyond language, beyond labels. Okay? But we also have to learn from that. Without learning from that, how do we know this? Without the concrete, how do we know the abstract? right? So this is what it is. So last thing I wrote here is that in order to pass through the bridge, we have to walk the bridge. Anyways, that's my discovery today. I thought, okay, this makes a lot more sense, and it ties into everything that we're doing and everything that at least that I'm doing and going through with astrology and all that stuff. It's wonderful. I guess you can call it, the closest thing you can call it is objectivity, which is kind of consciousness, but not really. Objectivity is a little bit, but the point is, it's not about the language, it's not about the words. Anyways, that's all. Something random. Thought that I'd share that today. Okay, see you later. Bye.